You are listening to The Confidence Project, episode number 146. Welcome to The Confidence Project. I am your host, certified life coach Lærke Nielsen, and I help smart women who doubt themselves calm their overthinking brain so they can stop hiding in the background and instead speak up and take confident action. In this podcast, we are shifting your identity. You're becoming a woman who believes in yourself and who wants to live her best life starting today. Hey there. Today I'm going to jump straight into it and I will be talking about different ways that we can unintentionally project self-doubt into the world. We show our self-doubt in the way we state an opinion, for instance, or how easily we change our mind, or whether we can receive a compliment. Different ways, subtle ways, in which you can transmit self-doubt, maybe without even being conscious about it. Now, why is that even important? It is important because the way we show up for ourselves is teaching the world how to treat us. So if you show other people, maybe in a very indirect way, that you doubt yourself, you don't take yourself seriously, you feel insecure about many things, you're not sure of your value, then they also will doubt you and they will not take you seriously and they will not be sure of your value either. So I'm going to give you 4 different areas where you might unintentionally project self-doubt into the world, how you can see that, and I'm going to give you some ideas how to change that. It's all about your mindset, of course. It all starts with mindset. If you listen to my podcast for a while, you will know by now that I'm a true believer in working on mindset as the first thing to ever change anything in your life. So it's all about mindset. And then it's about being conscious about the little ways that self-doubt can show up in your language, for instance. And some of this can just be a bad habit. It can be you have a habit of speaking in a certain way, and you're not even conscious about how this signals a lot of self-doubt. So this you want to pay attention to. I'm also going to share with you a little hack that I use sometimes that I call turn it around, and which is basically trying to imagine that someone would express themselves in the same way, and then try to imagine how you would perceive that person. So you can easily see if you have a certain habit in your language and you imagine someone else speaking like that, whether that will make you trust them more or less, or whether that will make you take them more seriously or less seriously. So when we turn it around, it can sometimes open our eyes to see how our own behavior is affecting the way other people perceive us. So, of course, we can never control other people's behavior and we cannot decide how they perceive us as a starting point. We cannot make them think a certain way about us and we cannot make them listen or take us seriously if they don't want. So that has nothing to do with your self-doubt or how confidently you state your opinions, for instance. Just to make that absolutely clear. But we can get in our own way if we express things with self-doubt. And the more confident you can show up for yourself, of course, the higher chances are that people will take you seriously and they will listen. But it's never a guarantee because we cannot control other people. We can only control ourselves. So I want you to use this episode as a way to figure out, is there any of these 4 behavior that I recognize from myself? Do I have one of these without being conscious about it? And is it something that I want to change because I realize I am unintentionally showing a lot of self-doubt every time I express an opinion? So let's get started. The first way is if you soften your statements or you speak as if you are not even taking it seriously yourself. This could mean using expressions like, I kind of think that maybe. That's already a very soft way of presenting an idea. Or it could be, I know this might sound silly, but, or I know I'm only speaking for myself, but. It could be that you say, I could be completely wrong about this, but this is how it looks to me. Or, but hey, what do I know? That's just my opinion. And maybe it's just me, but in this sentence, you're also giving yourself an escape route. When we express an opinion in a way where we start by saying I could be completely wrong. Of course, it's honest, we can always be wrong, and it's important to acknowledge that we don't believe we always are right about everything. But if you do this often, it's also a way of not actually stepping up, not actually taking responsibility for your opinion, and just saying, but this is just my point of view. You could also use words like, I'm not an expert, but, or if you ask a question, for instance, this might be a stupid question, or this might be a stupid idea. This is probably just a dumb idea. When you speak like this, you show that you're not taking yourself seriously. And in a way, you're also saying to people, don't take me seriously. This is not something important. It's just my opinion. So occasional humility is actually healthy. It's healthy to express and acknowledge that you know other people might have different opinions and that you don't believe that you always are right about everything, as I said before. But if you use this kind of softening or escape route every time you express an opinion, it will weaken your authority. And especially if you do this when you actually have a solid idea, when there's something you really thought about, you invested time in it, you researched it, you have a solid opinion, do not water it down or downplay it by saying, that's just my opinion, or this might be just a stupid idea, or I know I'm only speaking for myself. Of course, we are always speaking for ourselves, unless you have a big survey behind it. And most of the time, you're speaking for yourself, but it doesn't mean that it makes your opinion less valuable or less important than other people's opinions. So in a way, what you are signaling when you're using expressions like this is, I don't even take myself seriously, so you don't have to either. This is, of course, not the intention. You want to signal something else. So it's better to state your idea or your opinion first, and then add a nuance later if it's relevant. The second behavior is if you are someone who's changing your position too quickly. You present an idea, you present your opinion, and someone questions it, or someone are not really 100% in from the beginning. And then you quickly say, oh yeah, you're right, or my bad, you're right. I see that now, you're probably right. This will communicate, I don't really believe that much in myself. You might be coming from a different approach. You might be coming from a wish to be open-minded and to not be stubborn. But if you turn around your opinion too fast, it does actually give the impression that you don't really believe in yourself. You don't believe your opinions. So it's much better to do it in a different way when someone expresses disagreement with you, or someone hesitates, or they are a little bit skeptical. What you do is then you pause and you consider the input, and you could respond thoughtfully instead of completely changing your mind. You could say something like, you have a point, I'll consider that, I'll think of that. So you are open-minded, but you are not wobbly, you're not changing your mind just like that. The third way in which you unintentionally express self-doubt is when you seek excessive reassurance in your language. You use expressions that invite the other person to reassure you or to validate you. And this can be just a habit. It can be like a language tick that you have. So it doesn't have to mean that you are insecure. It's just a habit that you end many of your sentences with, you know what I mean? Or you start them with, I don't know if this makes sense, but, and then you express an opinion. This is something that's inviting the other person to say, yeah, I know what you mean, or yes, it does make sense. You're inviting them to validate your opinion or to reassure you that they get you. At the same time, this kind of excessive reassurance could also be that instead of stating your opinion, you phrase it as a question. You say something like, don't you think it's better we go there? Instead of saying, I would prefer we go over there. I would prefer that. You phrase it as a question, and it could also be like you have discovered a big error in someone's calculation, and then you say, maybe I'm wrong, but don't the numbers look a bit off? And it's actually not a question, it's a statement. You know there's a mistake, but you're phrasing it as a question. Now, I know there are some situations where this is actually quite smart. You want to ask the question to make the other person realize that they made a mistake, so that you're not confrontative in that sense. So in some situations, it could be good to ask it as a question when you really are conscious about it and you thought about this is a better way to deliver a message that does not feel uncomfortable for the other person. But if it's an opinion that you state and you tend to phrase it as a question, then this falls into the category of a way of expressing yourself that signals insecurity, that signals self-doubt. The final way that you can unintentionally project self-doubt is if you downplay your competence. And it could be that you're not receiving compliments. So let's say someone tells you how great you were the other day at the meeting, or your presentation was so amazing, or you did so well in this project, and you respond by, I was just lucky, or I don't know how I did that. Anyone else could have done it just as well, or there's really nothing. Or if you actually start to criticize your own performance, your own effort, and say something like, oh, I think it could have been better in this and that way. I should have done more with that. I wanted to be more focused on this area, but yeah, I guess it's okay. You want to sound humble, you want to sound respectful, you don't want to sound full of yourself. But when you don't receive a compliment or you downplay your competence, you come off as self-minimizing, and that will train other people to not really believe in you. And it's much, much better to thank the other person for the compliment and tell them you appreciate that they notice that. So the underlying dynamic or the underlying mindset for these 4 different behaviors is all, I'm not fully standing behind myself. This is, you could say, the common mindset behind all of this. And the way we stand behind ourselves is very much training other people in how to treat us. We are educating other people in how to treat us by showing them how we treat ourselves, how much we take ourselves seriously, how much we believe in ourselves, how strong we are in our opinions. And when you begin to stand more clearly behind your thinking, your decisions, your opinions, and your contribution, people will tend to trust you more. And this is not about appearing stronger or more dominant. It's more about removing the subtle ways that you weaken your presence. Stop downplaying yourself. Stop softening or weakening your opinions. And stop changing your mind instantly, especially if you have an opinion about something and you actually feel strongly about it. So I'm going to give you some mindset shifts now, some new thoughts that you can practice thinking and practice believing. And then I'm also going to show you a little trick that I find can be quite useful, and that is to turn it around. So imagine someone else who did one or more of these 4 behaviors and how you would perceive them if they did that. But first, the mindset shift. Now, the first thought I want you to practice thinking is, my opinion matters. My opinion matters just as much as anyone else. This is not about being right or wrong. It's not about having a good or a bad opinion. Your opinion matters as much as anyone else's. Remember that. Repeat that to yourself before you state an opinion. And if you go one layer deeper here, we could say, I matter. I matter as much as anyone else. Doesn't mean I matter more. Doesn't mean I'm full of myself. Doesn't mean that I want to take up all the space and I only want to hear my own voice. It just means that you matter as much as anyone else. And then you could practice thinking, people want to hear me. They want to hear my thoughts and ideas. They want my contribution. And also, I want to share my ideas. Of course you want to share your ideas. They're not interesting for anyone else if they stay inside your head. And here you can try to turn it around and imagine this kind of person where you feel you almost have to pull it out of them. They are not really speaking up, they're not sharing their opinions, and they seem to be waiting for your approval. They're not really sure about their opinion, and it's not really clear what they're saying, and you get confused by listening to them, and it very much seems like they don't themselves believe it matters. When you speak to someone like this, you hardly even feel like listening because you already have a feeling that this is going to be confusing. They speak too softly, and they undermine themselves by saying it's probably just a silly idea. Maybe you do want to know what their idea is or what their opinion is, but it's not really coming out of them. It's not coming out in a clear way. And they seem to water it all down and not really stand behind their own opinions. And this is, of course, very human. So I don't want you to judge a person who does that. It's very normal when we're not confident. Let's say it's a person who's in a whole new context with people that they don't know very well, or in a new job and they don't actually feel sure about anything. So it's completely human to water down our opinions and weaken our statements and speak in a very soft way. It's totally human. It's totally normal. I don't want you to judge this person. I just want you to put yourself in the place of the receiver and notice how difficult it can be to actually really understand that there's an opinion on the other side, and how this can very easily make you disregard their opinion. So it's a normal mechanism. It's a normal human behavior. Then when someone is not sharing confidently, the other person who's supposed to listen they're also not really receiving the message because it's coming out in a vague way. And so, of course, when you are on the other side, you would prefer that this person speak loud and clearly and express exactly what it is they want to say. So another mindset that I want you to practice is I contribute with something valuable. You could think people appreciate what I do, or at least some people appreciate what I do, and I appreciate what I do. You don't have to believe that everyone appreciates everything you do. But when some people do and they praise you, you want to receive it with joy. That does not mean you're not growing and learning. It doesn't mean you are arrogant or full of yourself or think that you are the best and nobody can teach you anything. It's not what it means. It means that you can receive a compliment and still be open to all kinds of feedback and wanting to learn and grow. And here you can also try to turn it around. When you are giving a compliment to someone and they are either rejecting it or they're just downplaying their own competences, that is not a lot of fun, right? You gave a compliment, you think someone did really well, and you tell them, and then they respond by saying, no, there was nothing. No, I was just lucky. It can really suck to give someone a compliment and then they don't take it and they kind of say, yeah, what I just did that was really brilliant. It's really nothing. Because for some people, this would also indirectly mean, okay, but if you think your own contribution is that bad, then mine is even worse, right? You must think mine is even worse. It's almost like if you want to give a gift to someone and they don't want to accept it, they don't want your gift, that also doesn't feel so good. So don't downplay your competences. Don't say that it was nothing. Receive a compliment and appreciate yourself for being competent and also appreciate the giver for noticing and giving you the compliment. The last mindset shift I want you to practice is I can disagree with people. I don't have to change my mind because we don't agree. It doesn't have to mean that people no longer like me. Now, that is really important. That's a big thing because often we actually like people more when they're honest and people who have integrity and people who can stand behind their own opinions, even if we don't fully agree with them. It feels more safe and you trust people more when they have a solid opinion. Not being super stubborn and never able to change their mind, of course, but also not changing their mind as the wind blows and like there's just one person who disagrees and then they change their mind. When you meet people like this, you can feel they stand for something. They have an opinion and they can explain the reasons for having this opinion. And on the other hand, they don't necessarily get angry or try to convince everyone else that they are right and no one can have any other opinion than themselves. And I already did the turnaround exercise here, but you can say it can be really annoying if someone insists on us agreeing on everything. We should agree on everything. So either they need to change their mind or you need to change your mind. Sometimes people can take it very personally if we don't agree with them, and that can feel exhausting. That can feel very uncomfortable. Or it can also feel very uncomfortable if they change their mind the second you express doubt or you have a question about their opinion. Like if they didn't really mean it to begin with. That will foster a lot of mistrust to this person. It's a bit too wobbly when they are not even sure of their own opinion. In general, we can say being a bit humble and respectful is always at its place. It's always good. But being self-diminishing and unsure of your opinions and whether you even have a right to speak, needing others to reassure you and sort of pull it out of you, and then changing your mind the minute you feel a little bit of resistance. This is not a person you would go to for future advice. It's also not a person you would trust either. So you might feel sorry for this person, but you would hesitate in trusting them. And on the other hand, someone who speaks up without taking all the space, who knows what they stand for and believe in themselves and their value without being arrogant or not able to listen to other people's opinions. That is someone you want on your team. That is someone you trust. And especially if they don't change their mind just like that. So if you recognize yourself in one or more of these 4 different behaviors, I don't want you to judge yourself now. I don't want you to feel bad about yourself. But I want you to take a look at where you are doubting yourself and why you are doubting yourself and see how you can change your mindset so that you also project more confidence into the world. As I said in the beginning, the way we show up for ourselves is educating other people in how to treat us. So if you show up in a very insecure way, You state an opinion and then you change your mind. You're not really sure about whether you even have a right to have this opinion, so you express it in a very weak and soft and a little bit vague way. And then the moment someone expresses a hesitation, you change your mind. You are training other people to not take you seriously. You're training other people to not trust you. Whereas on the other hand, if you show up with confidence, not necessarily believing that you are right in everything and you can never learn anything, you show up with confidence, you express your opinions, you believe they matter just as much as anyone else's, and you stand behind yourself, then there's a higher chance that other people will also take you seriously and listen. There's no guarantees, as I said in the beginning. We cannot control other people. But at least what we can do is we can stop getting in our own way by projecting self-doubt, by showing that we are not even sure of ourselves. So I hope this is useful for you. I hope that if you can recognize yourself in some of these behaviors, that you will take a loving and compassionate look at that yourself. See if there are ways where you unintentionally express self-doubt and where you actually can change your way of speaking and expressing your opinions so that you will feel more confident yourself. The moment you express an opinion loud and clear, you feel more confident yourself. And remember, you matter just as much as anyone else. Your opinions matter just as much as anyone else's. You want to contribute, you want to share your opinion, and you can trust yourself. So go ahead and speak your opinion and have a wonderful week. If you like what you're hearing on this podcast, I would be happy if you can give me a rating and a review and share the podcast with a friend. And if you now feel inspired to do this work and become a woman who fully believes in herself, then book a free call on the link in the show notes. I would love to talk to you.